Alright, so I'm currently trying to platinum every single type of EA game that there is out there, and if I can't do it before the channel hits 1 million subscribers, then my punishment is I have to platinum Fortnite, one of the longest, hardest, and most grindy games of all time. So make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Anyways, in today's video, I chose to platinum the newest UFC game there is, which is UFC 5. If you for some reason don't know what UFC is, it's the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and it's a sport where sweaty men and women like to hug each other until one person can no longer breathe, breaks a limb, or dies. Okay, maybe scratch that last part aside from the incident of 20 people for that matter. Oh my god! But I'm a pretty big UFC fan in my personal life. I don't really know anything about how it works. I just kind of like seeing people get punched in the face, and I think we all do. But the UFC 5 Platinum Trophy contains only 32 trophies, including the Platinum, which is much like the previous game I did a video on, being Battlefield 1. EA, am I sensing some lazy efforts with the trophy lists? How dare you? Then again, this is the same company that's made like 50 duplicate games, so I'm not even surprised.
That's what I'm saying.
But going about getting the UFC 5 Platinum is a bit of a mess, considering there's about 3 different main stages or areas you need to focus your attention on. One of these is called Fight Week, which is an assortment of challenges and trophies that are only available when it is quite literally Fight Week in the UFC, and I just so happen to be lucky, smart enough to notice that this week was Fight Week. Perfect timing to get the Platinum. The other 2 main areas of this trophy list are then divided into the single player career and the online career. Also, as a little bonus, cherry on top, or side hoe, if you will, there is quite a few random combat trophies within the game that you will get most naturally through playing it. However, kicking off today and my quest to platinum UFC 5, I began with the Fight Week stage of trophies because they are the only ones that are time limited, as we all know. UFC 5 also did begin with a little intro fight into how the game works, but I'm going to be completely honest, I suck at this game, and UFC 5 is particularly horrid at explaining how the hell moves work, and literally half of the game's essential mechanics I had to Google what they are, or I just figured them out on complete accident, which is one of many reasons as to why I failed the intro fight. Today is going to be a long day. However, once I did finally win by the sheer graces of luck, it gave me a cool cinematic and also the first trophy of the game pop from completing a challenge during Fight Week, which I assume was just from winning that fight, because this is a fight inside of Fight Week from my understanding. But I was then allowed into the real game, and I couldn't be more happy and ecstatic to begin suffering more. Before that, though, as I said, I entered the Fight Week portion of the game, and I got an easy trophy from just picking a winner and betting on a fight during Fight Week. I chose the first one, which was the Sean O'Malley fight, and I bet on him because Sugar Sean never lets us down. If this ages poorly, then but as I said, I was trying to complete all of the trophies in this area before continuing on. This led me to just do a few random fights that I saw within the Fight Week, because as I am a new player to UFC games, I had no clue that there was even other menu options in this game yet. I genuinely just thought that this was the game.
Are you a fucking retard?
After a few moments of critical thinking, however, I did come to notice that I was indeed not in the real game, and I just backed out to go play Fight Now, which is the offline mode where you can just fight right now against anyone with anyone. And I was doing this to both try to get a hand on this game's controls, but also to do the challenges that Fight Week has. There is 10 every week, and most of them are all very easy in layman terms. However, I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to do a submission because I was just completely unaware. Which is almost funny looking back at this after platinuming the game, considering submissions became my go-to finishing method later on. But I got another trophy here, which was random from releasing a submission to advance a position. And if you couldn't guess, I didn't mean to do this. Yeah, I accidentally let go of it and moved my joystick further because I thought I already submitted the little fucker. But hey, it was still a trophy, so whatever. Anyways, that fight I got the submission trophy in actually lasted forever because I couldn't figure out what I was doing. And in the third round, I ended up getting my 5th takedown of the fight while trying to do all of these damn submissions, and it was a trophy called Come Back to Bed. So that's kind of funny. I managed to get 2 trophies in the same fight on complete accident. Bro is the GOAT, and that's on God. Once that fight ended, however, I then just replayed it again, and I'm not even sure why, to be honest with you all. I kind of forgot this stage of me even playing the game because of my severe dementia, but also it was just so random what I was doing, and I don't understand my own thought process. However, I again just refought this poor man I've been abusing for ages now, and I think I got bored or frustrated with the damn submissions I was trying to do. Also, the reason I was trying to do them was because I needed to do 7 for my last challenge in the Fight Week challenge trophy, but I just started punching the dude in the face over and over and over, and he ended up going to sleep, which gave me a trophy called Headshot Bang from knocking out an opponent on the same side they are already damaged on, which seems like a typical occurrence. And I got another trophy right after that, which popped with it, called Shapeshifter from acquiring an alter ego fighter. And I still have no clue what the f this means, but if it alludes that we now get schizophrenic fighters, then I'm down for it. I think that could low-key be a superpower, I'm gonna be real with you. Anyways, I just kept on abusing this dude over and over on more rounds until getting bored of him, and I swapped over to do a female fighter. Something about sweaty multi-man wrestling just makes me feel odd, but when girls do it, I think it's great, and I would suggest more do it and record it for the internet.
What did he say?
Anyways, sorry about that, but this girl fighter whose name was Penis, from what I can tell, is actually the best at ground pounding or some shit. So I just used her to perform a ground pound finish and win a fight with ground pounding against another opponent. Turns out the legends were true, and here's the trophy after that worked. And playing as Penis against Vagina, funnily enough, I ended up finally getting a f***ing submission to work after almost an hour of attempts in this Fight Now event. But when I finally landed the submission, I think I felt a tear roll down my cheek, or maybe that was just sweat since it's summertime now and my air conditioning is broken. But the submission I did was also a choke submission, and that is a trophy in itself from winning with a choke submission. Anyways, with that done, I just had to go do something else, so I went and checked the Fight Week challenges, and look, a glorious 1 out of 7. Very demoralizing. We are cooked, chat. But seeing that, I decided to just begin the career mode trophies now and finish off that challenge within the career mode because they get progressed through any part of this game, regardless of the mode you're fighting in. And that's one thing I love about UFC 5. You can kind of cheese a lot of trophies with another controller and not against real players or AI, which I found very helpful. Thank you, EA Games. I love you.
I love you, bitch.
But to begin the career mode, you do have to make a player, and I just chose to play as Sugar Sean because I thought he looked cool and I think he's a fun fighter to watch. But basically, the UFC 5 career mode just has you rising from literal backyard fights to title defense pay-per-view events. And as I said, you literally do begin by just fighting in someone's backyard, and a trophy pops upon the fight beginning called Slice vs. Dreads. No idea what that's referencing, but I still got it, so it's fine. And during the fight, I still had little knowledge of any moves to throw, so I was just hauling straight punches at this dude over and over. But it was knocking him down repeatedly, which is good, I think. And it happened so much, I leveled up my straight punches to 2 in the fight, which got me another trophy from upgrading a move during a fight in the career mode. I then knocked that guy out and would sadly go quite some time without getting any more trophies because we kind of just went on a little spaz there with them, which is awesome. But the career mode had us get put into a gym, get trainers, all the typical things you'd expect a career in a sports game to have for you. But I would end up reaching this important fight that was in front of some eyes that work for the UFC. And it was said that I needed to win fast, which means in the first round to get a contract. And I did this fairly easily by just kicking some dude in the f***ing face, and he dropped to the ground harder than your mother dropped to her knees in college. But that earned me a contract in the UFC, and it also gave me a trophy called No Riz from earning my first UFC contract. I'm not sure how to feel about memes leaking into a AAA studio game. It makes me feel kind of uneasy. First they take our money, they won't take our dignity. But with that contract, it also puts us into the Contender Series, and once I accepted my next fight and began the training camp that occurs before every single fight, I got a trophy called Showtime from doing exactly that. And before going any further in the career mode, I actually backed out and began the Fight Now mode again to farm some more submissions because I now know more of the mechanics in this game, and I had some sort of idea on how to do things. During the grind of 7 submissions, which really isn't a grind, but it just takes a few fights, I also got my first legendary item, which I think is just natural from leveling up because I didn't do anything special at all to acquire it. I then just did a few more submissions and got my 7th one right here, which was my final challenge in Fight Week, and then the trophy popped for me called Easy Work right after I went back to the challenge menu. And this also finished every time limited trophy in the game, so we can chill now. There's 2 things I hate in video games: time limited trophies and online trophies. God, I'd have lower blood pressure if not for both of those 2. So back to the career mode trophies. We are basically in the cycle of it now that we are technically in the UFC, but basically all this mode consists of is training camps that last between 3 to 6 weeks from what I remember. They could be longer on occasion, I think, but that's kind of rare. And then you just have your fight at the end after the training week. But during the training camp, you do want to make sure you utilize it as much as possible because you need to train well to win, have good hype to sell fights and progress up the ladder, and overall just be utilizing everything to succeed in general within this game. And there's also a few trophies in the training camp. One called Nerd from achieving an A grade in a drill, which is unmissable on the trophy guide because you basically will get an A grade at some point unless you completely f***ing suck shit. Even I managed to do it right here, and here's the trophy pop. So overall, the career mode in UFC 5 is kind of bland. I think it's cool for what it is, but in terms of gameplay, it's like the same thing just repeated over and over and over without many interesting things happening. I did end up landing a spinning attack, however, during one of my fights, which I 100% totally meant to do and did not get on complete accident at all. So here's that trophy pop. I would also end up hitting this black dude so many times in the face that the doctor had to come check on him, and I got a trophy from that. Anyways, after some more playtime of the career mode, I ended up getting bored and just went to the online career mode, which isn't at all related to the offline career mode, despite them literally being named the same thing. However, the online career mode is the hardest area of the game and features a few trophies that are basically platinum stoppers due to the RNG and skill required to win a few matches in a row for both of them. And seeing as I didn't want to deal with the RNG RNG for those, I instead decided to steal my brother's PlayStation and I brought it to my house to boost with myself because there's only one other person you can trust in this life, and that's you, baby. But I would end up getting in a match right away with myself, and I naturally, let myself win, which finished the match fast, and it got me a trophy from starting a season in the online career. I would then unfortunately encounter some issues with boosting itself. I'm not sure if it's the UFC 5's genius or just weird server functions, but I, for some reason, just could not get into a match against my brother's account ever again, no matter what the I did. And nearing the end of this platinum, I would be doing the online for some trophies that are grindy, and I would fight these same people over and over. So I genuinely don't know what was going on, but this resulted in me making like 10 different PlayStation accounts to the point where his PS5 couldn't register anymore. And with doing this, I did manage to get all these annoying trophies done. Before going after the main challenge of this game, which is the And Still and Blitz Battle trophies from winning like 3 games in a row, I just got one from entering a Blitz Battle in general. I also did get my kicked into because I wasn't boosting this round, but then I did pause, made a few accounts on my other PS5, went back to Blitz mode, and managed to get to round 3 of Blitz Battle after winning 2 against myself for that trophy pop. And I then went back to the online career to get 3 more wins, which is all I needed to now after winning that initial match in the beginning of this. Before getting the And Still trophy, however, I did get one from upgrading a fighter in the career mode right here, which is very easy and natural to get. I then just boosted the And Still trophy as I said, and it popped right here, leaving us without really any more difficult trophies in this game, but still a lot of grinding to do. Now, the reason I don't think boosting that trophy is a bad thing in this game is because UFC 5's online career has no SBMM, which means you either get put up against average players or a level 300 sweat, which happened to me countless times. And it's quite a stupid system, to be honest, especially with the fact that not all fighters are equal. SBMM in other games isn't necessarily an issue, considering in shooters, for example, everyone has the same gun for the most part. But in this game, you were at a massive disadvantage with a base fighter versus someone who was fully upgraded, prestiged, everything. It's just retarded pretty much. But I did end up grinding some of the online career against real players despite it being stupid and hard. However, it is also much more fun than the offline career due to the real player aspect. And the goal in the online career, by the way, was just to prestige a fighter, which requires 1,000 advancement or upgrade points, and that takes at least 6 to 10 hours to get from just playing matches over and over and over. Thankfully though, it does allow you to lose and still gain points, so even if you suck like I do, you can still get the trophy. And the main reason I was also still grinding online instead of just going back to offline was because I had popped a double XP token. I had to play for the time to run out. The most gamer reason ever. But once it did, I returned to the offline career for good, and I would play it till getting every trophy inside of it. The first new one I did get was called Joint Venture from finishing a fight by joint submission. Now, I'm not sure what this means, but I believe it means you were literally about to tear their joints and they submitted. If I'm wrong, then okay, but here's a trophy again that I got on accident, which is like half the trophies in this game, it seems. About 30 minutes after that, I then ended up becoming a ranked fighter in the UFC, and this is easily done by just playing on easy, which is what I was doing, and just not losing any fights, obviously. Doing so gets you ranked up very fast, and here's the trophy pop once I was ranked. And in my play of this career mode, I was kind of abusing submissions on the AI enemies because they low-key suck at defending them for the most part, especially compared to the real players. The AI does not have a clue how to get out of submissions, and I was basically just using takedowns and grappling the entire time, which made this stage even faster, I bet, compared to throwing punches for 3 rounds straight. But I prestige one of these submissions, that being the arm triangle, and you get a trophy called the Best There Was from doing that, which is also alluding to the trophy called the Best There Ever Will Be, which I ended up getting next, funnily enough. However, this one isn't as simple as just prestiging a move, and it's actually the final trophy of the offline career from just becoming the GOAT. Now, becoming the GOAT is done by completing any of these objectives on the GOAT board, and most all of them are gotten naturally, or I should say they all are. Unless you for some reason are winning every fight you do by scorecard, then you should get this no problem. And I ended up getting it only about 3 hours after my last trophy. However, nearing the ending of the offline career, I also finally saw this button that said simulate, which means you can speed up training camp, and I'm kind of pissed that I was doing full training drills the entire time. I might lose it low-key. But once I did reach GOAT status, this trophy popped and it was kind of underwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. This offline career is very bland. It reminds me of any girl named Emma. Shout out Its Ilusion lore.
Oh my god!
But right after getting that trophy, I then went and did a few random trophies before going back to the online career to get that final prestige trophy that is the biggest grind of this game. And the first 2 I did were both from editing my player card and just throwing all 5 accolades on it and then customizing it completely, which, as I said, was 2 trophies, and here they are. I then plugged in a second controller and I began to farm out 2 combat trophies I had left. And the first one I got was from KOing an opponent from a clinch, which is almost impossible in the real game considering escaping a clinch is very easy to do and your punches aren't that powerful inside of one. But with a non-combative opponent who does less fighting grind than Stephen Hawking did in his life and made this very easy, and here it is. I then farmed a trophy called Block This from using a guard breaking strike to break an opponent's block, which is kind of an odd move, and I don't even think I did it right, but I still got the trophy regardless, so here it is. Now I only have one more trophy to get, and it's called Pound for Pound, which as I said is the trophy from prestiging a fighter in online career, requiring 1,000 upgrades or advancement points. And you get 25 every time you pass the XP threshold, which can be done in like 2 or 3 matches, so this does take forever to do. I also kind of lost interest in this game because I was bad at it and I didn't really care anymore after the bland ass offline career, so I would occasionally try to fight people in the online career to my best ability, but most of the time I just left my PS5 on AFK and did some real life shit like pooping and doing the dishes so I could just farm levels, because as I mentioned earlier, losing still gets you XP and using double XP tokens makes this even faster. I did also have a very hard time finding matches occasionally, and in UFC 5 the online can be summed up like this: you either wait 5 minutes for a match to get knocked out in 30 seconds, or you join the match immediately and also get knocked out in 30 seconds. Once reaching 1,000 upgrade points, however, I did prestige my fighter and I got the trophy with the platinum trophy popping along with it. So that was the UFC 5 platinum trophy experience. Overall, I think the game is okay. It's not really that great of a game in my opinion. I found it very bland. I also don't know too much about the UFC, or I'm super in depth with it in general. I do still like it though. I think it's cool. I'm just not a giant fan of it. But that's all for today. More videos coming soon, and I think I'm dying inside slowly.